Hello, Alex.
Hi, Neely. How's it going?
Going well. How are you?
I am good. I'm having a nice Tuesday.
Yes, indeed. It
Yeah.
is Tuesday.
Tuesday is going swell. I
Yeah,
am training later. I'm excited.
cool. Nice. So I want to just jump right in because we don't have that much time. But the reason that we're talking today is because yesterday you messaged me and said some things about your experience in rifle this past weekend. And it was sort of along the lines of like performance coaching, life coaching. And I asked you if you would be willing to do this publicly, like have an actual session. And thank you for saying yes. It's really vulnerable and I really appreciate it a lot because I really want people to understand like the kind of conversations that I have in my coaching sessions. And I think this will help them and
Sweet.
hopefully, mostly, hopefully help you. So I'm going to let you describe what your situation was in rifle and what's going on and what you want to talk about today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a very normal kind of thing for me to voice message you about. I feel like we do that a lot in just describing our experiences to each other. So thank you for being that source of, I don't know what to call it, right? But just like I can say what I felt, what I experienced with you, and I never feel like it's judged. And then you always give me insight or just help me come to some conclusions that is really helpful. So when you asked if I would do this publicly, the first thing was like, oh, well, it feels a little personal. However, it is like so valuable for me to be able to do that and to kind of walk through my feelings that I have in moments with you. And I just thought it'd be valuable. So
Yeah.
I'm going to
Well,
pretend now that we're not doing this
right.
publicly.
Yeah. That's how we started this. I was like, just pretend that we're not going to publish this. And then both of us can feel like really open and vulnerable and willing to say whatever.
Sweet.
So, but yeah, I mean, thank you for trusting me with this. And I love our conversations about mindset stuff and climbing and like life stuff. And so, um, yeah, this should be great. So, what is going on?
So my audio message to you was like, Neely, I had a freak out. For the first time of this season, I felt like my body is like, well, me, that I am now in a place where my shoulder is healthy. I'm feeling fit. I was like, oh, I can maybe get match my high point on my project or whatever. I don't know, but I really feel like it's like it was my first time stepping up to the climb, being outside of the yep, here goes the 1 to 2 bolts at a time situation and just working knowing that I just did not have it in me at that for those other sessions to potentially high point or send.
Mhm.
And this weekend I walked up there and it was the first time of the entire year that I felt performance anxiety, which was a really familiar feeling for me last year, where I stepped up to the climb thinking that I can maybe send, not kidding, 30 times, and having that performance anxiety be with me. And typically, I just kind of thrive with that. Like, I don't mind it. I feel it. I accept it. And if anything, it just helps fuel me a little bit. This time, though, I didn't even want to climb. I
Mm.
pulled onto the climb and I was like, I don't even want to be doing this. The first hard move, 3 bolts up, I just like barely tried, fell off, and was just like, let me down. I'm done. I don't want to climb on this, which is not very typical of me. Like, I feel like I'm usually able to push through that and not feel a mind barrier.
Mhm.
So I was really curious about that. I recognized some things, which is maybe I was menstruating. That was my initial external blame because I just couldn't really think about it too much at the time. I was like, it must be that. Like, that's cool. And I decided that I was just going to give myself a break on it. And so there's a 13A I've been dabbling on, and I decided just to really try and send that instead for the weekend. and it felt like the right thing to do. And I ended up sending that on Sunday, and it was a really fun process where I just fell at the top 3 times on it was actually a Friday, Saturday we were there. So I came off of a homunculus and I was just like to my partner, do you mind if I go get on the 13A right now? Like, because I barely climbed. He was like, sure. And I needed a right knee bar and it was already duct taped onto my thigh. So I was like, this is perfect. So I just went and I got on it right away, fell off at the top, and it loved climbing. Like it felt so good to be climbing on that and trying hard. I didn't feel any performance anxiety. Rested a while, got on it again, same thing, rested a while, got on it again, same thing. And it was so fun. Like I just had fun climbing,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like I needed. But then over the course of that night and the next day, I was really like, oh, what if I don't want to climb on my project anymore?
Mm.
And what if I don't think I can send it? Or what if like I want to, but my brain is just like, where I'm sick of this. Like I'm done with it,
Yeah.
which was kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah. It's understandable that would be scary because it's been your goal for years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what were some more thoughts that came up after you thought that and felt scared?
I some thoughts that came up was that I had I've put so much pressure on myself without realizing it. Like not it's not like I'm intentionally putting pressure, but all winter I'm like, I need to try and be as fit and strong as possible so I can send this. And I've actually never doubted before that I could send it. And I think that was maybe the first time I was like, what if I don't? Because I also next year don't want to be driving to Rifle every weekend. And I've already really established that in my brain. It's like, I
Mm.
want to take a few bigger trips maybe there, but I don't want the weekend grind
Yeah.
to be part of the picture. And then I also realized that I was like, it kind of feels, do I have trauma from just how many times I felt performance anxiety and then did not send it last time? But I really, the more I thought about that, don't think that's true because even though I didn't send, I still felt like I made progress and I
Yeah.
was still happy with so many of those attempts.
Mm-hmm.
And another factor was nobody was up there. Well, my partner, and he's wonderful, but nobody was up there. And I know um, for me that when I'm feeling nervous or anxious, I often, well, actually, for most of my endeavors, I like external sources of motivation to help fuel me through them
Mm-hmm.
or like create the psych for me to try hard. And internally in that moment, I just felt like I didn't have it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I don't have the intrinsic motivation to try hard. Where I was like, what would it have been like if there was like 10 people up there? Would I have felt the same way? And I feel like I would have had performance anxiety, but I would have tried hard.
Mm-hmm. Which is different for you because last year, even when people weren't up there, you could still find that intrinsic
Yeah,
motivation.
I would still try hard.
Mm-hmm. So before, I mean, it sounds like you've got a lot going on. There are a lot of thoughts. You have already processed a little bit of this, but from this conversation, what would you want the objective to be?
Well, I want to know that I can climb on my project and not be self sabotaged by not like, I don't know, by what happened, by just feeling my brain, even though my body was perfectly ready. I had my rest, I had warmed up perfect to try and give it a good go. And then my brain just felt like it was like, no,
Mm,
not today.
right. You don't
And I
want to
don't
be,
want that to feel like
yeah,
a thing.
you don't want to be sabotaged by your brain next time
Yes.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's understandable. You make the effort to go, you train all year for this.
Think
Like,
about it. I'm actually excited about it. I do like it, but I am sick of the moves.
yeah, yeah, you are sick of the moves.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I don't know if many people have the experience of getting on one climb as many times if I've gotten on this particular climb.
Do you know how many times you've gotten on it?
Last year, I think I was at around like 40 plus attempts, like right around in there, like
Mm-hmm.
somewhere between 40 and 50. And then probably the couple years before that would have been about 15 to 20 per season.
Mm-hmm. So maybe 40 and then plus 50 is 90, and then this spring a few times.
Yeah. So we're probably nearing like it's a
Yeah,
lot.
it is a lot, Alex. It's a lot of
Yeah.
times, it's a lot of persistence, it's a lot of internal motivation
And two injuries, like
and two
on the
injuries.
route. Like earlier this year, I tweaked my shoulder on the route. And 3 years ago, I tore my other shoulder, my rotator cuff on the route. So I feel like there's history there.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I love climbing on it.
Yeah.
Maybe not the first four bolts though. But but last year I just get through it and like it was like it didn't matter that I wasn't enjoying it. And this year now that I can sometimes fall low down and have fallen low down quite a few times, um it doesn't feel as like easy just to push through the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you were cruising the bottom last year. So why is it important to know that you can go up there and not be sabotaged by your mind?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's because I really do want to send this route and I really do want to try my best and give myself all the opportunities to send it this year. Even if I don't, like, honestly, I'll be okay. But I want to at least be able to try and know that I tried hard.
Mm-hmm. Why do you want to send this route so much?
Well, I have a lot of investment in it at this particular time. And I think I really can. And I've come really close. And it just feels like it would um kind of complete a journey for me.
What else would it do for you if you sent?
I think I've really stepped away from because originally, like, really wanted to send 514, and I
Mhm.
still do. Like, it would be like a milestone grade for me, but I'm honestly now not as worried about it because I feel like I can send that grade.
Hmm.
And I feel like there are others that I could send faster than this one, but I feel like I am just so invested now that I am like, this is yeah, it's just become more personal, I think, this particular route.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean that it's become more personal?
Mm, I think kind of showing to myself that I can complete something that I set out to do that I know I can do. And I genuinely want to do. I historically I've come really close to finishing things and then not finished them. Like setting a goal on horsemanship, coming really close, but not stopping horses. Um, skydiving, scuba diving, flying plane. Like I've done a lot of things and I've come close to like a milestone and then not like not continued. Have just decided that I'm like, whatever reason, I don't actually want to be doing this thing.
Hmm.
And so I think that's a little bit of a fear too, where it's like I just want to show myself that like, yeah, I set out to do this thing. I decided on it and I really want to stick with it.
And when you did those other things and didn't reach the milestone that you wanted to reach, how did you feel?
That's a good question. I think I didn't feel bad about it in the moment. It all felt right
Mm-hmm.
because then I was already passionate about something else. Like which is the reason I stopped in the first place was like, well, I started this other thing and I like it more.
Mm.
And in hindsight though, I feel a little bit of regret. Like I was like, oh, I wish I would have just stuck with it a little bit more.
Why is that?
Because when I'm talking like real close to like a milestone, I'm like it's like real close, but it was always kind of a fear barrier.
Mhm.
So like with skydiving, it was one like jump away from my license, but it was called a hop and pop where you had to jump out at a lower altitude than you normally jump out. And for me, I was just like, that for some reason scares me, and I don't like this enough to want to do that.
Mhm.
Flying planes, it was like the cross country. I'm totally happy going and flying around our little practice area. Well, that's actually an exaggeration. I hate flying. I'm scared of flying. And I was not happy to be doing that. But the thought of going cross country one flight away from my private pilot's license was too much. And I was like, I don't want to do this. So it's been like really close to reaching like the goal I initially set out to do. And then because of something fear related, I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, those are both really understandable things to get to that point and be like, no, this isn't worth it to me.
Which the top of homunculus also scares me.
Okay. So that was my
Just gonna
next
it's a
question.
nice yeah. Um yeah,
Right.
so that's a thing too.
Okay. Because the last basically checkpoint on your list of things to do on the route is get through the bottom, be pumped, and go through the top. Pumped, which is scary for you even when you're not pumped, right?
Yes, and I actually have not led through the top.
Okay.
I have successfully top roped it. Like I have not fallen on it in a really long time. And I
Okay.
know I can do it. It's just that when I get up there and I'm like, I could go to the top, I'm like, I really don't want to. So I think that's probably actually a bigger barrier than like through talking to you. Like I know that's a barrier, but I really think if I was to get to the last bolt from the bottom, it wouldn't even be a thing. I would just do it. But maybe
Uh,
the unknown is a little scarier. So this year, and this has been really helpful for me, is I just stopped thinking about the route as the anchors. And I've been working on getting like a 2 hang to the last bolt, 1 hang to the last bolt. And that's been really fun. And that's kind of where I was at when I went to get on it this weekend. So that didn't really change. So the top, I have to skip a bolt, but I actually don't think I have to skip a bolt now,
okay.
which is great.
Okay.
I think I could just extend it
So,
thanks to talking to an experienced, awesome lady who listens to our podcast and was like, have you thought of just extending it? And I was like, no. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sure that will work. So I'm not like, I feel better there. I don't really think that's the thing, but I just wanted to mention it.
okay. So, just to be clear, you do not think that the fear of getting through the top on lead is holding you back from wanting to get on the route.
Correct.
Correct. 100% correct.
Like 90% correct.
What do you think you would need to do to make it 100%?
Um, well, I think it was in my agenda that weekend after deciding to do the extended draw, just to go up there, put an extended draw on it, realize I can clip the last bowl and feel totally fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the practice falls I have taken off to the side were just as scary as I was imagining them to be. So I like zero interest in more practice falls up there.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, and I know this, is that if I was to actually fall higher, like where I would imagine I would fall, I'm straight above the last bolt. So I wouldn't have the swinging component. Um, and I wanted to get up there, put the extended draw on it, feel what that's like. It's just that when I went to step onto the route, I was like, the last thing I want to be doing is climbing on this. And so I just didn't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have some things in place that you can do next time to
Yeah, my
mitigate
next
this
goal,
fear.
because I wanted to, so my checklist was to get a 1 hang to the last bolt and then lead last bolt to the top and then do halfway to the top and then try and send.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
When you say those things, how does that feel
It
looking into
feels
the future?
great. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that makes like logical sense in my brain.
Okay. All right.
So I was surprised to feel performance anxiety because it wasn't even time yet to
Perform.
to perform, but I was feeling like I could. And just that alone kind of brought it all up.
I mean, I do want to point out that you said earlier in the conversation that you don't want to be driving to Rifle next year. You would really, basically, like, you would really like to send it this year because you're kind of tired of the grind. And so it
Yeah.
seems like that could potentially put more pressure on you to send this year. How true is that?
I think that's pretty true because I've definitely realized whether I send or not this year, I really don't want to climb on it next year.
Hmm.
So I guess that is quite a bit of pressure, actually.
And how does that feel saying that?
Well, it feels very true to me. Like that's what I need. But it also feels like, oh, it is pressure. And last year, September, like I really was like, I have this in the bag. And then this season seemed to end so quick
Hmm.
for a variety of reasons. But it was like, whoa, what happened? I blinked and fall was over and now it's winter and it's not available to me anymore.
Yeah. How did you feel about that?
I was bummed, but it was okay. And we went to the Red in November and that was super fun. And I sent something, which was great. And, but then this spring, as everybody can probably feel me on, it was not a predictable season. And with Rifle being closed, I really, like in my brain, I was like, I'm going to try my hardest to send this before like July, August.
Hmm.
And just not even really having the opportunity to. And then shoulder was just kind of depressing. So I
Hmm.
think it makes sense that I'm feeling the pressure I'm feeling when you put it help me put it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got pressure on the future side and on the past side because you didn't get the time that you thought you were going to get this spring, summer on it.
Yeah,
And you,
pressure.
yeah. And you even said it was a little depressing. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Um, depressing this from the spring.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I feel like there was so much want that over the winter and over the time away that there just builds up this excitement and these I hate to say it because I know it's not awesome, but expectations, like dreams of what getting back on the climb in the process can look like. And when it just felt like it was just one thing, like two big things after another, preventing that from happening, that did feel depressing.
Hmm. When you say depressing, what were some emotions that you felt?
Less emotions, more like 20 romantic fantasy novels later, laying on the couch, being in a hole of just like, like my shoulder hurts. I'm upset. I'm just gonna just do this instead of like feeling empowered. I felt pretty limited by what I could do for a little while, which
Hmm.
was fine. And I feel like I've been really patient coming back into things. And I'm really proud of that. But also feeling good for the first time was scarier than I thought it was just going to feel awesome.
Yeah.
Instead, I was like, oh no, now there's expectations.
Well, maybe let's back up for a second when you said that you didn't feel the emotions. You just sat on the couch and read a lot of books. And I mean, it seems to me like what you were trying to avoid doing there was breathing this hope and expectation and dream that you didn't get to make a reality this spring summer.
Very possibly. I think I do delay grieving processes like a champion in general. So I think there is definitely some resonating like truth to that with me for sure. Where it's
Mm.
like, but it feels silly, right? To feel like I need to grieve because I can't climb on my project in rifle. Like there's so many more important things out there that it feels like, yeah, it brings up that bigger question, right? Of like, is this silly? Is it all silly? Does it even really matter?
Totally. Yeah, we have these existential moments in our climbing where we're like, we're just climbing on rocks. It doesn't matter. I shouldn't get so upset about this. But the truth is that you spend most of your days thinking about how you're going to train for this and how you're mentally prepared for this and how you're not injured for this and how you're going to make a van to go live there. Like your life is very much revolved around this route right now, and I just want to say that it's completely valid that you would need to grieve that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for validating that.
How does that feel?
It feels good, but you're getting really quiet. And I don't know if it's on my end or if it's on your end, but you've had a slow fade in volume.
Oh. Um,
Oh, you're back. That sounds
oh,
great.
that's weird. Okay.
Um, do you want to just ask me how that feels?
Yeah. So when you think about those feelings being valid, what thoughts come up for you?
I think those are, it feels reassuring to just add validity to that. It feels kind of complicated because I am totally fine crafting my whole life around climbing. Like, I've decided it does matter to me, and I've always prioritized activities and like pursuing passion. It does not bother me at all to spend money and time on trying to climb a project.
Yeah.
If anything, it always feels good. So it's on that side of things, I think I'm fully committed to validating that. And then maybe on an emotional side, not realizing that it's not been as committed.
Hmm.
Or just not realizing how actually disappointing some things can be.
Right. Yeah, we've talked about this before about how it's not your first emotion that happens usually when you fall off to be disappointment because you try really hard and it's ingrained in you to have this growth mindset where you're like, well, I did do that better and that went well. But this feeling of disappointment is hard for you to access.
I think so. Yeah, I don't think I process disappointment very often.
Hmm.
It's like maybe how my gut digests broccoli, which is not well.
Yeah,
Like it just goes right through. Yeah, try and speed up that process.
right. Yeah, it's uncomfortable, right?
I would assume it is. I don't think I've actually done much of it to yeah, it is uncomfortable. And I think I'm very good at just thinking about the next positive thing
Hmm.
or using gratitude and being like, but I am appreciative of this. But I think that doesn't add validity to the actual feeling itself,
Yeah.
which I'm starting to recognize.
When you say you're starting to recognize that, what does that mean?
I think I'm starting to have understanding for why I felt the way I felt
Why is that?
because it has been a big deal. Like
Hmm.
there has been a lot of things. And so it's like, of course I might have a big reaction. And you've seen me have my one other big reaction, but that's really been like pretty much it on the
Hmm.
route. Like one time I got really upset and I cried at the base for a little bit. And I think I fell down and it just felt like a lot. But I haven't actually had any big reactions to things, which was one of my goals that I set for myself last year at some point was to have more reactions to things, but I haven't actually done that.
Mm. Why was it a goal?
I just thought it was so cool to see some people and just like realize that they have strong feelings about the outcome of their performance and they let themselves have that.
Hmm.
And others awkwardly let them have it too.
Hmm.
Like it's never like everybody's just going about their business not aware that somebody's really upset about the performance outcome, but it was just like a mutual moment of understanding.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really cool. And I don't ever let myself try, like, I always try and like box in that, or I just legitimately don't feel it from so many years of not.
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah.
And what do you think the value is that you have that's keeping you from having big reactions?
That's a good question. I think um I can really remember one moment as a child which really stood out to me. And it was one of my first horse competitions. So I did competitive horse stuff. I loved it. It was my thing. Um, and we watched a girl mess up in her routine and she just started bawling. And I remember a person close to me was just like, that can't be you, or we're not doing this. And the reasoning behind it was, I only want you to be happy.
Mm,
So it was like a really valid reasoning behind it. But I also think at that moment was like, that's unacceptable behavior.
mm,
And like from that moment on, I was like, no, must be a good sportsman at all times, regardless of what happens. Aren't we doing this for fun? And
mm.
why would we do something if we don't actually like it? And to me, I viewed that as not liking something.
Interesting. And I mean, of course, that makes sense that you would have these beliefs and thoughts about it if basically you had that reaction and somebody was going to take away that thing that you loved, you know?
Yeah, maybe. But it wasn't like, it was like that wasn't the intent, but maybe that's how I took it.
Mm. So when you see people at the cliff having big reactions, do you think to yourself that's inappropriate?
No, I really don't. Okay, it depends.
Right.
If certain words come out and like it's way over the top and it seems aggressive and it's disruptive to the environment, yes. If somebody is just having a moment, throws one shoe off, like whatever, it's fine. But I've heard some wobblers where I'm like, that's not okay.
Hmm. If you were to guess, what do you think having those wobblers or getting upset or crying or whatever does for those people?
I imagine it's how they close their stress cycle. Like they felt a lot and that's part of them. It's like their shake or or something, just trying to close the circle.
Hmm. And when you came down and said, I'm not doing this, and I'm like, you had your in quotes freak out, and then you went over and you sent the other thing. What did it
I
do
didn't
for
send
you?
right away. I sent the
Well,
next day
okay, let
after
me
5 attempts.
let me
Yeah.
rephrase. Let me go back. When you came down and had your freak out, what did it do for you, if anything?
Um, that's a good question. I think I was upset with myself, but I was also really proud of myself because I was like, I haven't sent anything new all year. And what would I tell a client? What would my good friends tell me? And they would be like, go get on something else.
Mm, hmm.
Like, just remember you like to rock climb. Like,
Yeah.
remember what it's like to climb hard and fall off, Not just be so stuck on like, this is climbing to me. It is one route.
Mm.
Like, it's only these moves.
Yeah, it sounds like it gave you a little bit of space from the root and a little bit of clarity about your next steps.
Yeah. And of course, it's nice because I go down there and then it's like, it was great to see familiar faces and people who've done the route. And they're just like, that was my favorite route of all time. That is like rifle. That is such a good route. And be like, oh, thank you for saying that. It is a good route because in the moment, I actually just like hated it. I was
Mm,
like, I hate this route. Um, Even though I don't, but it felt like that.
yeah. So, what are some things that are coming up for you through having this conversation about your path forward with homunculus?
I think I need to. Mm, that's a good question. I would say just be understanding of why I might have big feelings and do some things that I know are tools that help me in the moment for that. Like, for example, I warmed up really well, so I knew I could give it a really good low point burn. But then that's extra pressure on top of the pressure I'm already putting through myself. I know if I'm having bad performance anxiety, I really have to do a bolt to bolt on whatever it is before my try hard effort because that
Mhm.
just really helps me calm down. The other thing is meditating for 5 minutes before I get on it really helps. And I haven't been doing that because I haven't been doing any of that because I haven't felt like I've needed to.
Mm,
Um, but I think the biggest thing is just maybe accepting that my goal is actually happening to me whether I wanted it to or not, of having stronger feelings. Like I
mm,
had strong feelings. I didn't like it, but actually that might have been a good thing because that was one of my goals. Because I typically am a person who does not have super strong
yeah.
feelings
Yeah.
to those things.
These are all really tangible things, and like really there's a lot of clarity in here. And I do want to say, when you say that, like it's accepting that you have these strong feelings, that you're having these, it's totally understandable that after so many years of kind of pushing those away and seeing the positive in things, it would be difficult for you to really feel them and let them be there and be okay with them.
Yeah, the okay with them, I think
Hmm.
is the struggle.
Right. Like finding the value in them.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions on how to be okay with them feeling feelings?
Well, yes. I'm going to ask you first, though. What do you think you can do?
Um, that's a good question. Maybe just so so I went down and I was like, six people asked me, how'd homunculus go? Like on separate, not at the same time, separate. And I was like, it went real bad. I think I'm menstruating. Freaked out. They're like, oh, that's a bummer. I'm sorry. And I was like, yeah, I feel like I just need to send something. And they're like, that's really like, yeah, that sounds amazing. Um, so I'm surrounded by supportive people who will literally just like support me no matter what I say. But
Hmm.
maybe I can just start actually being like, I'm disappointed. Like, and actually just vocalizing it because I know that's helps me a lot with things. But even to my partner, instead of just being like, oh, it'll go better next time, or like immediately in my phrasing, rephrasing to the positive, I can actually just give myself that time to recognize that I'm like, I'm upset.
Hmm.
And the weird one that I'm kind of unsure of is like if I'm having performance anxiety, which I know a lot of people have, and I've struggled with it multiple times. Like I had the thing of being like, yeah, there's nobody up here. Like I feel alone up here with these feelings. And if I it so it felt just like anxiety versus the performance anxiety. Like to perform and be anxious, I'm very happy with. Just to be anxious, I was not so
Hmm.
happy. Um Maybe recognizing, like asking myself if I actually want to get on it
Hmm.
instead of trying to prove to myself that I can.
Hmm.
Because that's what I did. I did not want to get on it. And I was like, you can do it. Like, just one move at a time. You can do it. Just try your hardest. And I did not feel like I was on board with that.
Right. Which is interesting for you and different, because in the past you could have just powered through it. That would have worked.
It would have worked. But
Yeah.
in this particular moment, I'm like, what if I just did not get on it because I didn't actually give myself a green light that I wanted to get on it?
Hmm.
So maybe also, like, it was nice to have a dabble in project. And my partner mentioned, he was like, I think you should have a secondary climb, like always.
Hmm.
And I was like, to me, that seems mortifying. Like, what? Like, but how would I be? And I think there's actually a lot of enticement to that also.
Mhm.
So that if I don't want to get on my project, I know I have another choice. So I try and get on it when I actually want to get on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I heard you say basically when you were talking about going bolt to bolt on it, that decreases the pressure on you, it seems like. So
Yeah.
anything you can do to decrease the pressure on yourself in that on that day, whatever that means. And then you said meditation, and it sounds like you haven't been doing it because you didn't think you needed to, and now you know you need to. And then
Yeah.
accepting that you're having the strong feelings. And actually, what I heard you say was acknowledging that you have the strong feelings, like coming down, recognizing I'm feeling disappointed. But there's one thing that you could do, which we've been doing here, that's one step further, which is saying, I'm disappointed. And it makes sense that I'm disappointed because I really want this and I just fell off and I'm so sad.
Yeah.
And it's okay that I feel this way. Like, I want this. Of course, I'm going to feel disappointed.
So acknowledging it, I'm disappointed, but also accepting that it makes sense
Yes,
and
validating
stating and
yourself,
okay, and then validating why it makes sense,
why it
why I
makes
feel
sense,
that way.
why it's okay to feel that way, because that's also completing the stress cycle. Like, you can toss a wobbler and feel terrible for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of your life. If you don't,
Really?
yeah, if you don't, I mean, how many climbers do you know who are miserable because they're not performing and
Yeah, that's true.
they're not validating themselves. So I think it's even more important to validate yourself because it lets you let it go.
Yeah,
And then you can be psyched again instead of holding on to
that's
that
really
misery.
helpful.
I mean, I don't know. Wow.
No, it
It's
feels really helpful. And I feel like I could do that with anybody I'm around.
mhm.
I mean, I could tell them all I'm menstruating. Like it must be menstruation. Um, Men and women. So if I could do that, it feels like I could also just validate why I'm feeling, even though that feels like it would be harder to say, but it
Yeah.
feels like I could. And I think that would be helpful for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what could you do to carve out time and space for yourself to do that?
Mm, I I think the space is already there. It's just that I am already replacing it with like how I'm going to correct what happened
Mhm.
instead of acknowledging that something happened. Like I feel this way, this happened. I'm okay that I feel this way because of this. And then maybe moving on to what's my next action step instead of just like feeling a lot of things and then being like, it's okay because tomorrow I'm going to go to the top 2 times,
Mhm. Mhm.
whatever it is.
Right. How is this all feeling when you imagine yourself being at the cliff next time under homunculus?
Hmm. So already, well, one thing that you told me in the audio message, which we didn't talk about it a lot because as soon as it was established that, like, hey, can we just have this conversation and record it? We stopped talking about it. But you said something that felt very, very helpful to me. Um, and I don't think I can unwind hearing that was that I really think this will pass. Like you'll get through feeling that way. That's
Mhm.
okay. You've done it before. You can do it. You'll do it this time. And just hearing that confidence of not assuming I'm going to feel the same way.
Mm.
And so just more being curious about how I feel when I go up there, but not necessarily being like where I went, which was this is my new me forever.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Feeling a little bit more trust in your abilities to get through these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I trust in your abilities. Obviously, I'm the one who said it. But
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, just hearing that this will pass. You'll get through this. I don't see this affecting you for long. Was so helpful.
Hmm.
But yeah, all the things I think we've talked about have started that journey of just getting me back more to feeling curious about what will happen instead of just feeling an impending sense of doom and gloom
Yeah.
without the gloom because the gloom doesn't get to come out. But yeah,
Yeah. Right. How are you feeling right now?
I feel good and I have therapy in 30 minutes, so I get to go. I'm like, oh, I have a double therapy feeling session today. Yeah, I feel good. And I'm really thankful. It was really interesting to think about it in a way that I didn't know I could think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're sort of giving yourself permission to feel a little bit more of the spectrum of feelings.
Yeah. How do you feel?
I feel great.
Okay, good. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. I mean, I know you can do it. You know you can do it. But even if you don't do it, it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay for us to want these things really, really badly. But, I think it's also important for us to keep in mind why we want these things because your why has changed over the years.
It definitely has, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool
Mhm.
to evolve
Yeah.
with one project. Not that I would wish anybody to have a 4+ year project, but
Mhm.
it's interesting, that's for sure.
It is. And it's taught you a lot. And yeah, you've kind of just evolved through this whole thing.
Yeah. Thank you, Neely. You're
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being so vulnerable. And I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.